Making a 3D model used to mean months of learning complicated 3D software, and most people give up long before they ever finish one. But you don't need any of that anymore because AI can now build the entire model for you from just a single image. And in this video, I'll show you how to make your own 3D models from scratch, fully textured and animated with zero modeling skills required. The whole process starts with one image, and there's one specific detail in it that's the difference between a great 3D model and a messy result. I'm running all of this inside Higgsfield, which is an all-in-one platform with the exact image model we need built right in. So if you want to follow along, I've left a link to it in the description below. And I've also dropped the full workflow down there, with every prompt I'll use in this video completely free, so you can copy them exactly as we go. Once you log in, you'll notice everything is laid out along the top navigation bar. And to make our image, you just click on Image, which opens the image generation workspace. From the model selector, I'll pick GPT Image 2, because right now it's one of the best image models for giving you a character with exactly the details you ask for. And that first image is what the whole 3D model gets built from. I'll set the aspect ratio to 16:9, the resolution to 2K, and the quality to high. Now for the image itself, I'm making a full body anime boxer standing completely still with his arms straight out to his sides on a plain neutral background with no references needed. That specific pose is exactly what we need so that he can be rendered as a 3D model later. And the plain background will help the AI focus on just the character without getting confused by other details. Once it generates, I get back a sharp, front-facing boxer with nothing else in the frame. If I'd let him stand normally with his arms down, they'd blend into his torso and the model would come out fused together, which is a real pain to fix later. This pose is actually the industry standard starting position for any character that's going to be rigged and animated. And the reason every professional studio uses it is because it gives the software clean information about where each limb starts and ends. When you skip it, the AI has to guess, and it usually guesses wrong. One more thing worth paying attention to in your prompt is the art style. I went with anime specifically because the clean lines and defined shapes convert really well into 3D geometry. Hyper-realistic styles with complex skin textures or loose clothing can work, but they tend to produce messier results on the first pass. If you're just starting out, anime or stylized characters are the safer choice. So that's the base image done, basically built to become a 3D model. But right now, it's still just a base. We need to actually turn it into a 3D model with real depth. Turning that flat image into a 3D model sounds like the hard part, but it's honestly the easiest step in the entire workflow. The tool for this is called Meshy, and all it does is take a 2D image and turn it into a full 3D model that's ready to use. I've also left a link for Meshy in the description below. Inside Meshy, I'll go to Image to 3D workspace and pick the Meshy 6 model, which is their newest and most accurate one. Then I'll upload the standing boxer, and this is the important part. I'm leaving every setting on default. Normally, this is where you'd expect to mess with things like topology, poly count, or symmetry, but you don't need to touch any of it, which is the whole reason this works if you've never made a 3D model before. That said, it's worth knowing what those settings actually do, because once you've done this a few times, you might want to use them. Poly count controls how much geometric detail the model has. A higher poly count means more triangles, which means smoother curves and finer detail, but also a heavier file that's harder for a game engine to run in real time. Topology is about how those triangles are arranged, and clean topology matters a lot if you're going to animate the model, because bad topology causes the mesh to fold in weird ways when it bends. For what we're doing today though, the defaults handle all of this well enough that you won't notice the difference. So I'll just hit generate, and after a minute or so, I get the boxer back as a full 3D model I can spin around, with the depth and proportions all pulled straight from that single image. Right now though, it's just gray with no color or surface on it yet. That's what the texture step is for. So I'll open Meshy's texture editor, select image input, and click texture so it automatically follows the color from our image reference. This is super important because it keeps everything consistent, locks in the right color tones, and makes sure the model stays true to the original look. I'll let it run a couple of versions and keep the one that matches the original image best. And now it actually looks like my original boxer, with the skin tone and the boxing gear wrapped onto the 3D shape the right way. So from just one image, we made a real textured 3D model, and it only took a couple of minutes. And it doesn't end here, because a model that's just standing there frozen can't actually be used for anything. Normally, this is the part where it'd require expensive software and real animation skills, but I'll show you how to make him move using none of that. First, the model needs what's called a rig, which is basically a skeleton inside him that controls how each part bends. In Meshy, I'll just click rig and it places that skeleton automatically. And this is exactly why I had him stand with his arms straight out earlier, because it makes it easy for Meshy to work out where his joints go so the rig comes out right instead of bending in weird places. What Meshy is doing here is called auto rigging, and it's genuinely one of the most impressive things in this whole workflow. Normally, rigging a character by hand takes hours and it's a full skill set on its own. But the fact that this happens in just one click and comes out clean enough to animate is very impressive. Once he's rigged, Meshy actually plays preview videos of him moving, so you can see him in action before picking anything. From there, I just choose what I want from Meshy's preset library, so there's no animating by hand, every move is already made for you. For this one, I'll use the boxing practice animation and render it. You can still see him from every angle, and his movement is fluid and expressive. It's not perfect. The movement in the hands can look a little unnatural if you watch closely, but for how fast this was, it's really impressive. I'll also test out the arise animation from the library. He is pushing himself up from a knockout position, his body heavy, unsteady, and reacting like someone who's just taken a brutal hit. The movement feels earned, the way a real fighter gathers himself before getting back on his feet. So now he's a fully rigged 3D character that actually moves, and I never animated a single frame by hand. But these are still basic moves on a pretty simple pose. For professional use, I want to push it further with more intense action shots. I want that exact same boxer, but in the middle of a big action pose, and keeping him looking identical is the part most AI tools struggle with. If I just generated a new image from scratch, I'd get a completely different character that wouldn't match the model I already made. So the trick is to reuse my first image as a reference. I'll head back into Higgsfield, open image with GPT image 2, and keep the same settings as before. This time though, I'll drop the standing boxer in as a reference, so it keeps the exact same character. Then I'll prompt him doing a shoryuken, that rising uppercut where he launches up with one glove to the sky and energy streaks around his fist. And it comes back as clearly the same boxer with the same face and the same gear, just mid-air in a full action pose instead of standing still. Now I'll run this one through the exact same Meshy steps, but honestly, this is the harder test because a pose like this has arms and legs going in every direction, which is usually where image to 3D struggles. So back in Meshy, I'll drop it into image to 3D workspace on the Meshy 6 model, leave everything on default again and hit generate, and it handles it really well. The raised arm and the bent legs all come out solid instead of distorted like you'd half expect from a pose this extreme. The energy dragon looks good too. Then I'll run the texture pass on it, the same way to bring his colors back. This is very cool. It resembles our original image perfectly, but it's a fully rendered 3D model. And from here, you could rig and animate this one exactly like the first. The process is identical no matter the pose. So now I've got two 3D models of the same character in totally different poses, both made from nothing but a single prompt. But having the model is only half of it. The real value is what you can actually do with these. The most obvious use is game development. Since the model already comes rigged and animated, you can drop the boxer straight into a game engine like Unity or Unreal and use him as a playable character or an enemy with his movement already working. If you'd rather have him in the real world, you can export the mesh, send it to a 3D printer, and turn him into a real figure you can hold. They also work anywhere you need something in 3D, like AR filters, VR scenes, renders, or virtual sets. And if you're a content creator, these models open up a whole category of video that used to require a full animation studio. You can import your character into Blender, set up a simple scene, and render a short cinematic clip entirely for free. And it works for way more than characters, because you can turn any object or product idea into a 3D model the same way, which is perfect for mock-ups, pitches, or showing a product before it physically exists. With this workflow, you can start with nothing but an idea and in a few minutes have a real 3D model that's textured, rigged, and ready to use without ever touching a single piece of 3D software. So if you want to start creating your own 3D models today, use the link in the description to sign up to Higgsfield. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.